Alternatively, there are some other locations that you can use. We're going to call this the kill fields, okay? The reason why I call this the kill fields because on this map, the enemy will locate around this ridge and they'll have an insane advantage point to make this whole area a complete kill zone. Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby, and after you gave me such awesome feedback from my map tactics last week, this is going to become a series that I release every Monday, Map Tactics with Quickie Baby. And last week the winner was Redshire, as you're seeing now. This is going to be a continuing trend. You guys say what map that you want down in the comments below and then upvote, and then I'll have a quick flick over and the most requested map that's upvoted the most will be the one that I do next week. These videos take me quite a long time to do, so if you want to see more of them, keep upvoting the series, guys. I really appreciate your feedback and it helps get the video lots of coverage. So let's start by looking at the heavies. How would I play a heavy on Redshire? Okay, to avoid confusion, and something that I'm going to take as a staple now for the series, I'm going to have the map set up like this, where you see a green base and a red base. Now in a heavy tank, I'll immediately look and see what the enemy have. If my tank is fairly fast, aka can I go 35 to 45 plus, then it might be up to me, if we have a lack of medium tanks or competent players, to try and defend the north. This is a very important location to defend, as I will highlight later as to what you can do in your medium tanks to very aggressively try and take control of the map early. What I will do is I will literally go along the ridge, and I will be above the river. I will be above the river to get into the position up here. This position up here has complete artillery cover, and this corner is very easy to defend around. If I take artillery fire along my route, I will drop down into the river and I will use the riverbed as cover. I will highlight later why it is so important to stop enemies from getting up into here and preventing them from getting up specifically into this location. From this location, it's a case of defending, and when you think you can poke out round the corner and try and spot the enemies if they're trying to advance around here. You can therefore get your artillery support and also support from the ridge line up here. This ridge line is able to absolutely decimate here. This is a kill zone for this ridge line, so you're going to be spotting here to try and stop the enemy from coming around the corner and taking this defensive location. If you allow the enemy around the corner here, then they can basically dig in, and it's going to become a hell of a lot more difficult to dig them out. You need to kill them here as the kill zone. Alternatively, there are some other locations that you can use. We're going to call this the kill fields, okay? The reason why I call this the kill fields because on this map, the enemy will locate around this ridge and they'll have an insane advantage point to make this whole area a complete kill zone. Basically, until you actually get to this river, you're completely trashed. You're gonna take so much damage advancing through here. But sometimes this is one of the only flanks that you can advance through. What I like to do more in my heavy tanks is take this position along this ridge line here, and specifically there's now a ridge that comes out here that you can use this to go hold down on and basically shoot down into the enemies that are trying to advance into this location, and also try and put pressure on enemies that maybe go out into the open around this building here, and also put pressure on the ridge line. Also, if the enemies get very confident and locate around this ridge line, the town, and the ridge line that goes along here, then you can poke over and you can have shots down onto them as well. If you must go into the kill fields, I recommend you use the undulations and the ridge lines very carefully and time your attack. Try and attack when other people are attacking. Don't get singled out and don't get absolutely annihilated from the tanks that will be camping here and will basically create their own kill zone around here. If you can make it to the H1 area, there's a very successful route where you can basically push completely north, and then apart from a slight kill zone here, once you can make it into this town area, you should have clear run on their artillery and also the ability to poke around corners and shoot up onto the hill, where hopefully your team might be surrounding the enemy. as you have drawn their fire away from them. So let's talk about heavies from the red point of view. I like to start most of the time up on the ridge. This is my favourite location to go to for the heavies. There are some nice rocks which you can poke out around, and you can catch the enemies as they try and advance down here. If you've managed to get up the slope quickly, you will have a kill shots, well, you'll have a kill zone across here, right at the start of the game. Also, you'll catch any scouts or medium tanks that try and do the scouting run along here. A couple minutes into the game, this position will be no longer suitable. You won't be getting any effective fire off, and at this point the enemies will have likely made it into the killing fields. When this happens, I like to locate along here at this ridgeline and prepare to defend an advantage point and create the kill zone along here. I can get so many effective shots off here from this ridgeline with tanks with gun depression. You generally don't get spotted either. You can use the trees and the bushes to basically remain completely hidden and just create a massive kill zone in the killing fields. Alternatively, if we find that the enemy are actually pushing hard around this corner, then locating slightly further north around this ridgeline will allow you to have shots down onto them. However, you need to make the kills happen precisely here, because once they make it to this rocky outcrop and they start to dig in around the corner, then you're in a lot of trouble, because they'll advance to the north of the map and they'll advance round. You don't want to let that happen. Alternatively, if you've got no one defending, then it's quite good to locate up here. You need to poke out occasionally, but be mindful that this ridgeline will have a pure vantage point down on you that you need to be very careful from. And also their artillery, who are likely to locate here, sometimes here, and sometimes as far out as here, will all have our nasty artillery shots down onto you. Once you've secured this corner, you can make it round. Start here, make a foothold, and then if you feel that you can, locate up around here and then slowly push round this rocky outcrop until you reach here, where you will be in an artillery shadow. Their artillery will be able to get no effective fire on you, and you'll be able to hopefully spot their artillery from here and also work around the ridge. Alternatively, if you get here and you find that the enemy are located down or maybe even on the ridge, and that locating up here will create too much of a kill zone here for you and you'll lose your life, use the river. The river provides you with excellent cover from the artillery, although it will slow you down. It will prevent your traverse from working very well either. But you should have some cover, and hopefully your artillery will be able to give you some support and you'll be able to get shots up at the ridgeline. If you make it down the ridgeline because you want to play this map quite aggressively, you're going to have to survive the killing fields and try and win the killing fields by using the ridgelines here to stay behind and to shoot over. There are several ridgelines that you can use on your approach, but the enemy will likely create a kill zone around here, where they're likely to have a few people up on this ridge, a few people around the town area here, and even people locating up on here can have shots on you once you start to reach deep into the kill zone. However, if you continue your route and you can make it to this ridgeline here, then you can have clear spots into their base, probably spotting their artillery either here, or likely they will have retreated up to here once they see you coming. Be warned, there are likely to be heavy tanks and tank destroyers that are very campy on these buildings, and you're going to have to push them off if you want to get into the base. So guys, at the end of each vehicle type, I'm going to give you 1 or 2 key spots for either base, which are my points of victory. So, Quickie Baby's green base points of victory for heavy tanks will be either locating up around this corner, or locating on the ridgeline here. Those are my points of victory for the green base. Quickie Baby's points of victory for the red base will be the starting location here with the intent of going here, or alternatively starting here with the intention of breaking through and going up. Okay, so now we're going to run down what my medium tactics are for the green base. With my medium tanks, there are 2 key places that I like to maraud around this map. All my medium tanks usually have quite nice gun depression, and I feel that you are an aggressive scout in a medium tank on this map. I like to maraud around this ridgeline here. This is very important. I patrol up and down here, poking into these bushes around here, stopping when I can, using my sixth sense to know if I've been spotted. And I like to sit in this bush and get spots here, get spots down here, and use your artillery fire to cripple the tanks that will camp up here and cripple the tanks that camp up here. I really highlight how important this bush is. There are some bushes up here that really will allow you to have insane vantage points on the enemy without the possibility for them to return fire until you get spotted. Hopefully, by locating up here, you've managed to take out the enemies here through using the ridgeline. This is a very nice ridgeline to poke and shoot over, which provides you some cover from this direction. Also, your artillery will hopefully be supporting you. And then once you can make your break for it, you can try and squeeze through the kill zone here and make it to the rocks. Once you've made it to these rocks, you have an opportunity to use the north of the map, which has some excellent bush locations, to try and sneak in and take out the enemy's artillery. But be mindful, the TD ridge and heavy tank ridge here will have an absolute kill zone on you if you get spotted as you're crossing. Alternatively, I like to locate my medium tank around here in these bushes, able to spot across and counter the scouts that will make their snake runs along here. Also, the medium tanks can make clear spots on anyone who stupidly goes out into the field, and occasionally get spots onto people who are down below this ridge line here, which will provide ample opportunity for your artillery to make the kills happen. Once the game develops a bit, I like to advance along this ridge line in my medium tanks and find the ridge line that's located here, go hull down and be getting shots on the enemy who are located here, and also shots against the enemy who are located along this ridge. Usually my attack will coordinate when inevitably the heavies that locate in the killing fields will push over at the enemy, and that's when I like to poke and start to really influence the game. So now to talk about medium tanks that spawn at red base. Okay, I will look at the enemy setup, because this is a very aggressive and situational specific tactic that I'm about to tell you. I will look to see if the enemy have many medium tanks. If the enemy outnumber your medium tanks, then it's not possible to do this. I also look to see if the enemy have competent players. If the enemy have very competent players, it's usually not a good idea to do this. However, if you've checked all the boxes above and you're in a tank that goes 40 kilometers an hour plus, which is basically all medium tanks, then feel free to make the initial dash and try and make it around this corner. This is a very aggressive play, but it can pay off. This riverbed here is very nice at protecting yourself, and as long as you make the kills happen as they progress along here, and hopefully you've got some artillery support, then you're very well protected here against the enemy artillery. Once you've dug in here and you've secured the position, then I suggest making your way up and along, and there's a fantastic vantage point here where you can shoot down on the enemy if any are trying to advance at you along the riverbed, and if they aren't, continue your approach later on into the game once it's safe, and use this lovely ridge line here to get spots off on the campers on the ridge line. And feel free to poke. Sometimes you can spot artillery here, here, and here. Be mindful as well that it's very likely that if they have any tanks still located here, once you reach this location, they'll just be inside their spotting range, and they will be getting shots onto you. Alternatively, play this map like a heavy. Start here, give fire support down onto this location initially, then branch over here to protect the north, or branch to the south to protect the south. You can never go wrong with that tactic on this map. It's very defensive, and sometimes it won't work as effectively and you won't get as much from the game as you could do if you were to play more aggressively. So just to highlight a couple of points of victory for the green base. This bush here, this is the point of victory for my medium tanks on the green base. For the red base, my point of victory, if you can get up, is in here very early in the game. So now I'm going to talk about light tanks on Redshire. Starting from the green base, I like the bush here. There is a fantastic bush to be had here. I've had games where I've been able to get 4,000 to 5,000 spotting damage on the tanks located here, as well as being able to spot anyone who goes down behind these buildings and advances up here. This bush location is just simply fantastic. You've got a series of bushes in front of you, but then there's a gap followed by a rather large bush with 3 trees. Sometimes you can knock the trees down early, sometimes that'll get you spotted and counter-batteried by the artillery. Failing that, just be mindful, use your sixth sense, work the bush, but watch out, enemy scouts will be trying to do the same thing from the other side, and if they proxy spot you, you better hightail it backwards and be able to escape. Alternatively, scouts can rush into the bushes here, which can provide spotting for the ridgeline and also counter spotting for the scouts that try and make the ridge runs. Patrolling this ridgeline is very important as a scout if you can't get into this bush here to do static scouting. So let's look at lights from the red side. I like to use the bush at the beginning of the game, right at the end of the series of bushes along here. Don't go too far over the ridge. If you've gone too far over the ridge, you'll be in a lot of trouble. Try and get into as safe a bush as you can at the beginning, and you will spot all the enemies that come down here, as well as the enemies that camp up on the ridge, and you'll also spot any enemies who are trying to make a cheeky run for the hills. Once you're done with that bush location, try and patrol the ridge line. Try and get as much spotting damage for your team as possible. Hopefully you've got a few tanks located in the hills behind you, which will be able to shoot down onto the enemy on the opposite ridge, and also any idiots that decide to go into the town. So just to highlight my points of victory, they're in the same place for the green team and the red team. The bush here and the bush here. Failing that, patrol along the ridge line and win the game. Now let's look at tank destroyer locations from the green base. I always like to situate my tank destroyers up here. There are some rocks that can provide you some cover from artillery, but more importantly, this vantage point allows you to create kill zones here, here, as well as also later on you can relocate to here if you've lost your southern flank, and you'll be able to shoot the tanks as they reach here and they approach up into your town, and especially when they cross here to go for your base. Alternatively, you can locate your tank destroyers behind these buildings, which will provide you ample cover from artillery. But basically you'll be saying to your team that you're not going to do anything until the enemy reach the killing fields here, especially the kill zone once they reach the last ridge and they make their final push on towards you. This position is very linear towards just defending this kill zone here. Now to look at tank destroyer locations from the red base. In my opinion, it plays out very similarly to the heavies. I think you should get behind the rocks initially and be able to shoot down onto any cheeky scouts that make it up onto the ridgeline, and also on the kill zone down here. Any stupid enemies that go into the town you can take advantage of. Later on in the game, if the enemy push round the north, then you locate slightly further north to create your kill zone here, and then once they start to leave the rocks. Or alternatively, if the enemies are approaching from the south, relocate as quickly as you can to here and create your kill zone once they reach the edge of the killing fields. So just to talk about Quickie Baby's points of victory for green base tank destroyers, up on this hill, that's the point of victory for me. And for red base, it's here with the intent to either go north or to go south as the game develops. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed my map tactics for Redshire, and it will help you to play the best that you can on this map. Remember, use the comments below to request your map for next week, and I will be releasing map tactics every Monday. If this video has been helpful to you, please consider rating it down below. It really helps me out a lot. And if this is your first time watching a map tactics video, then why not check out the others in the series? As always guys, you've been epic. Thanks a lot for watching, and hopefully I'll see you soon.